Okay, Jeff here. I'm jumping over now to the Working with the French book or video tutorial series, and I'm going to deal with the traits. I'm going to talk from two different books. Well, actually, it will be three books, um, because Pascal Baudry's book is really good for this. But because he dealt with French Americans, the other shore. No, the name of his book, but the two that actually he talks very specific about domains and things and very specific topics and lots of in-depth anecdotes I can valid with people. But there are other resources, um, articles by specialists that spend their time. This is their full-time job doing this, um, and they've spent years doing this and training people in you know corporate classes and custom classes and all that. So I want to kind of focus on it here. And the one I want to focus now here is we're going to start with Melissa Lamson's stuff, and we're going to talk about the French. We're going to talk about each of the traits. I'll do one video per trait, just so it's easier to kind of do it, breaking down each thing rather than making them a little long. So for the French, the first trait that I want to talk about is the high hierarchy versus low hierarchy spectrum. This one is it's really interesting because the French are kind of in a middle ground. They have hierarchy, they have a structure that tends to be hierarchical, but they also have a concept of what's called système de débrouillard, where you kind of just do anything to make it happen. So they have a very kind of, we're going to get that in the results oriented later, but in the next thing we're going to mention this again. But the fact that they've got the hierarchy structure, but another way of, and the French are known to kind of be revolutionary anyway. Look at the whole history of France. I mean, going back to Roman Empire and the Gaulois and all that, and the fucking the Asterix stuff, right? The whole story of Asterix is just about this. Just perfect example of and as I had Norbert Dupont was he was my thesis director to both my theses in the University of Lyon too, and he was a really good sociolinguist, and he would tell, just he'd sit there telling stories of the French history and how language fit into that. He would just sit for talk for 2 hours, just like, wow, this is great. This guy just knows it really well. But he would say that the French they have a history of revolution. The French Revolution, all kinds of revolutions, all kinds of wars, always, and it keeps going with the strikes. The strikes today are just a continuation of that, right? So this hierarchy thing, there is the hierarchy. They do want the government. They do like to have the government to actually pay for their health and education things. But there's a thing, it's kind of anti-governable, but it's not like the United States at all. Not a lot like that at all. It's just, they just want to be fair, right? And the whole value system is based on equality and egalitarian things, and it just that that no one's left out, that kind of thing, and no one's left out of things. So hierarchy is there. However, there is the divide to conquer principle. It's quite present, and there's also the hierarchy. And Pascal Baudry, he said this really good in his book on French and Americans, The Other Shore. At least in the French version. I'm not sure it was in the English version. He didn't translate all the chapters in the English version, so only some of them. It was kind of a partial translation of the book, and so I can't remember if I don't remember which version I read the French one, probably the English one too, but I don't remember which one, if it was actually in the English version, but it's definitely in the French one, where he talked about the structure of the hierarchical structure is God at the top, then the boss, right? Then the dog of the boss, okay, is more important. It's true in the restaurants. See the dog is around the restaurants. The dog is more important. then the employee, and then the customer at the bottom. So the customer is at the lowest level of of the prioritization thing, and so this fits into the whole hierarchy thing. And it's so true. The customer service just sucks in France, just really sucks. And it's from this thing. It's just the way that this whole structure, and so this whole hierarchy thing plays into play. So there is a hierarchical thing. Um, But there's the whole DIY, do it yourself, or just system DIY, and make it happen. Wing it. Just wing it. Wing it. There's a winging attitude, but the problem is you're winging it so often that becomes the actual process, right? Too much winging. It's not intended to be winging. It's just that just winging too much. Um, Wing it too much. And so the hierarchy thing, and there is also a lot of backstabbing. And I had a teacher at the Berlitz, one of the teachers of the Berlitz classes for training classes we took at SAP. A lot of different negotiating classes and influence without authority and stuff. There were some really good classes that Berlitz was getting. They get different places that come and they get these courses, but the teachers we had there in 2012, I took a bunch of courses during 2012, 2013 time frame, and they were talking about there was a Hungarian person from Hungary, and she was telling us how it was even Hungarians are even more, but the French are just a lot. They'll be double faced in their way that they say things behind the scenes. So you got to be really careful. Um, and she would tell us a lot about this. The Hungarians get this, but the French are just really even more. It's just amazing. So so the hierarchy things is you're gonna gotta be watched for the double faced stuff, right? Double faced kind of stuff and backstabbing and stuff. Um, However, the word solidarity is there, right? So it's kind of a funny mix of things, and you kind of have to navigate through that. It's it's definitely not transparent like the Americans are, where what you say is you do what you say, and all that, and say what you do is you do what you say, and you say what you do, and I think it's all the same. The French and then the Germans already talked about them in the other book, right? But the French are really kind of this no man's land in between the two, and we're going to get to other topics about the French about they don't want to be visible, so we're going to have to get to that point too. But I want to cover each one of these other traits first to kind of get this down, right? Um, on the cultural one, the kind of the question, and then we'll get into the very specific traits and all that. Okay, so that's the one at least for leadership management, hierarchy, and all that kind of stuff. So